Boy, this is my 50th year in the industry.
50th?
50th year, yeah. I started out in '73, and so I've seen every decade, I've seen every change. When indoor first came in, I mean, I've gone through it all. And so I was so excited about 64. We've talked about it, Prop 64 legalization. I shook hands with Gavin Newsom. I evangelized for it because I didn't want people to go to jail, long-term prison sentences, and I wanted to see mainstream people feel comfortable to be able to use it. And my Catholic uncle uses it because it's legal now. So I'm glad about that, and people aren't going to prison anymore. But the negative aspect was that they were supposed to never have 1 acre or more growing for 5 years. They had a cap. Gavin shook my hand and promised they wouldn't do that. They opened it up, we talked about it. 2 months later, property in farmland, Salinas going for $80,000 an acre, and property up in the Mendocino Hills is going bankrupt. There used to be 225 to 250 thriving outlaw farms up there. There's only 25 farms up there left. All the rest of it left, they're abandoned. They just got moving vans and left. Even the traditional underground black market people couldn't make any money because underground pounds are going for 400 or 350. So even they've moved out. So you've watched a complete extinction event. So where I live is completely becoming vacated. So you're talking about the Emerald Triangle from, say, Willits up to Fortuna. Basically people that put a lot of their money into their homes because they couldn't really hide it anywhere else. They couldn't go out and go bank accounts, so they took a lot of the money they were growing with and put it in their ranches. And they have these beautiful ranches and they can't rent them. They can't even give them away. It hurts more than the farmers. It hurts all the businesses, the schools. It's the way of life that we've got. Cannabis is like taking its rightful place and it's going to be the #1 economic force in the world at the cost at the legacy farmers up here. And that's just the way it is. At the end of the day, when they write history, that's what's going to happen. In the late 70s and early 80s, so I kind of watched that whole industry explode and go through there, which led into the private prisons and the minimum mandatory prison sentences in the mid-80s, which when they came in to try to destroy it, they did destroy our industry, and then all of a sudden, instead of 6 months, you did 20 years. And changed the whole industry, and that's when indoor came about. To watch it all at the Emerald Cup now, after all these decades, it's sad, and the legacy farmers all deserve the subsidies like other farmers. They should be all given $250,000 or something. Not that much money. Give all these OG people $250,000 to start a new life or sunset out or do something, because they basically sacrificed themselves to see cannabis come across the country and the world. Because you remember, it was so repressive. Really, it was only West Coast, Humboldt, Mendocino, Emerald Triangle people. We were bunkered in, delivering to everything to the country.
And what made you decide to start it? That was 2003, right?
I grew up loving going to the county fairs, the local shows at the end of the year. There wasn't a lot of internet back then, and so it was such a joy for families to go see the vegetables and the competition and the animals and stuff. So we wanted to have a friendly cannabis competition. We thought we deserved it too. And we disguised it as a birthday party. Didn't do a poster. People thought we'd still get busted. 24 entries, a couple hundred people showed up. And back then it would have serious prison sentences, and we just did it. It was really revolutionary what we did. And we came in, had a tremendous first year, and then the second year, a lot of the farmers didn't come down. A lot of people thought we abandoned the Emerald Triangle, but we hadn't had a big, up there we were doing an Emerald Cup without really vendors. A few vendors, but it was all just the hometown people, right? Once we came down here, we interacted with consumers. Then instead of 1,000 people, it was 15,000. And so that first year, everybody got to see what kind of business they did and what kind of interaction and storytelling, and the next year it just blew up. And, we peaked for about 35, 40,000 in 2017. And then we're going to turn it into a national competition, because pretty soon you're going to see, well, you're already opening up all the South American countries. I mean, I grew up and there was phenomenal Oaxacan, Mexican weed. There was Acapulco Gold coming out of Mexico. You had Colombian Red.
Wow.
I mean, there was amazing South American. You had all the Thai sticks and Thai from Thailand. I mean, all over the world. So you think about it really quickly, we're going to have a world market and we can have a World Cup. And that's what we want to do in LA, because it's the biggest media market and the biggest cannabis market in the world. And I was selling the 5,000 pounds, and every 1,000 pound load, you get about a 50 pack of these purples, or just incredible colors, reds and stuff that were like flaming yawns of the packs, right? And so I was selling the 5,000 packs just to get all those to give to my little people. And then I made a lot of money and they made a lot of money, and we all had the finest of all the pot. So I'd sell 6,000 pounds just to get a hold of that 500 of the or 400 of the very niche. Most of the indoor in Humboldt and Mendocino and Emerald Triangle was indoor. It wasn't outside, because they were busting. Camp came in, which was when they did the minimum mandatories and they set up the private prisons. They also set up Camp, which was the eradication team for Mendocino and California, about the same time, mid-80s. So all of a sudden you couldn't grow much because they had choppers and planes flying over everything. So people went indoors. And if you couldn't, back then you had rights, and so if they couldn't get a snitch on you, or they couldn't see, which they couldn't get a warrant. So they knew these big indoors were going, they couldn't do anything about it. So through the 90s and early 2000s, the Emerald Triangle was really 90% indoor. People have no idea, like we're evangelizing for sun-grown, but I mean, I was there, okay? And the bottom line is most of that was indoor. And they came up and actually said they would work with us. And then Tom Allman and us devised a plan where you could grow 99 plants outside in full sun with a permit from the Sheriff's Department. And we actually funded the Sheriff's Department for $1 million that second year and almost saved them. And then the feds came and busted the program. And that's when Colorado and Washington went legal. If you look historically, before they ever went legal, the little town and county of Mendocino led the way in the whole country with that program we did with Tom Allman. I mean, the money that went from cannabis was huge, gigantic, and still is, you know, gigantic. So that's how I look at it. And I'm very proud of the Emerald Cup and what we're doing, and we're going to keep educating, and it's all about education, whether it's cannabis or whether it's psychedelics, plant medicines.
Interesting. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great seeing you again.
Yeah.